This is an interview on the 25th of January 2006 with Ronald Arthur Perkins, VX143640, V185259. Driver, 39th Battalion, D Company. Ron, you enlisted with the Army on the 5th of November 1941, but you really wanted to join the Navy. Tell us a bit about what the Army promised and how you went to join the Navy in the beginning.
Well, I thought I'd go down and see the Navy first because I thought they'd have more recall on me than what the Army would. So I went down and seen them down at the Navy depot, and they said, well, you'll have to have your medical and you'll have to sit for exams. So I said, well, where do I do that? And they said, you'll go to the rooms at the Spencer Street Railway Station at a certain time, and they gave me the time I had to be there. So I get there, and it's about 100 of us sat, and anyway, I got through that all right, and I came back home and then got notification that I'd passed the exams and that they'd call me up later. In the meantime, the Army was looking for me too.
So did the Army, once you joined the Army, did they promise to transfer you to the Navy?
No, they didn't even mention it actually, and I told them myself that I joined the Navy, and they didn't want to know. So I ended up at Mount Martha.
So you ended up with the 14th Battalion, which was an armoured
division,
and you were down at Mount Martha for a few weeks, and you were on Bren gun carriers?
Yeah, on Bren gun carriers, yeah.
Is that because prior to the war you had a truck licence, or you're a driver?
Yeah, before the war I was a truck driver and a licence, and then I had to sit for the military licence. So I sat for that and got the driver's licence through the military.
So while you're down at Mount Martha, they were looking for volunteers for the 39th Battalion, and you transferred to the 39th on the 29th of November 1941, but just take us through about asking for volunteers for the 39th.
Yeah, well, they lined us up. I was asking for volunteers for the 39th, so they lined us all up, and they were also looking for MPs. So there wasn't too many hands went up. But anyway, they said, well, you, step forward. And so that was the way we left. They picked us out to go to the 39th Battalion.
So you went off to Darley after that, but you were only at Darley for a few weeks. And you don't remember too much about Darley? You probably wouldn't have had much of a chance to do much training.
No, it wasn't much training at all. Just how to handle a rifle, how to pull one to pieces, also Bren guns, how to take them a piece. Took us to the range, and that's about all the training we had.
So the 39th Battalion then left for Sydney on Boxing Day 1941, and you left with them to join the Aquitania, which was a fairly big ship at that stage, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was one of the biggest ones. It was bigger than Queen Elizabeth, and it was docked down at Woolloomooloo in Sydney. And the boys thought, oh, this is going to be great down there because it's not a bad spot down there. But anyway, as soon as we got out of the train, we were straight on the boat. I wouldn't even leave it hanging around. And it was quite interesting because the tugs come along to pull her out. And anyway, you could hear the engines and the Queen Mary and the Aquitania trying to get going. Anyway, he was stuck on the bottom, and they tried to pull it off again, and one of the hawsers broke. And we happened to be up on the nose of the ship at the moment. We moved from there, and this hawser would come back onto the boat, cut you in half, So it was warned and put all back further back. So then they had to wait till the tide come a bit higher. And anyway, they ended up getting it hot. So away we went. And on the way, went through the Sydney Heads, which was the last we seen of Australia.
And during the trip up to New Guinea on the Aquitania, you had to do some guard duty because there was a detachment of nurses from an Australian General Hospital there. You had to look out for their well-being.
Yeah, that is correct. But that gave us a bit of a breather because we could get up on the deck, and those were about on the third deck, I think, and we were a bit lucky than some of the others down the bottom. And it was quite an enjoyable trip across. There's only one instance when they sighted the sub and the two escort boats, or I think they were Swan and the Perth, I think, when we shore. They dropped deck charges and apparently they got the sub.
And what did you think when you sailed into Port Moresby Harbour? What were you feeling then? Sort of a bit of excitement?
Well, it was more of a bustle because we had to get all our gear and get ready because the Aquitania couldn't dock it at the wharf, and we had to be unloaded on the lighters to take us over to the wharf. So then we had to walk out and then climb over and then come down these rope ladders into these, carrying our rifles and our double bags. It was a bit awkward. At any rate, we landed all right. So then they organised us and said, you got to march out 7 miles. This is getting on late at night. So we marched the 7 miles, 7-mile drum. And we ended up stopping, parking up on the hill. And we had no mosquito nests or anything, and the mosquitoes just eating us. And I got trapped again, so I had to go on guard duty again, and 2 other of us. And that's the time we just sneaking a smoke behind some bushes and this rustle in the bushes. And we thought, God, what's this? And, we were stepping lightly. And next minute, we yelled out, who's there?
And it was a young native, wasn't it?
It was a young native, yeah, and he said, oh, Soputa, cigarette. So that was our introduction to New Guinea.
Yeah. So you settled into life at the 7 Mile, and you were involved in a lot of works down by the jetty, of course. You were unloading boats, and you were also involved in unloading the MacDouey. And you can remember the MacDouey, in the bombing raids.
Yeah, the MacDouey, yeah, it's a bit unlucky. They come into the wharf and we were unloading the MacDouey. And anyway, the civilians had to move out. And I was loading them onto, they had a couple of the old planes there, and I was loading them onto that. And then the hotel keeper came over and he said, listen, lads, you're working pretty well. He said, I'm moving out. And he said, you can have what's in the hotel, what's left there. So we thought, oh, this is good. But there was 3 of us at the time. There was the tent boys and a couple of others. So away we go. We tear across there, and of course all the beer had gone, and all we could get was a carton of
Creme de Menthe.
Creme de Menthe. Yeah, that was. And anyway, we got that, and then Louis Bennett, he was a mechanic in the civil life, and he said, come on, we'll get one of the cars, and all the civvies had to leave their cars in a line on the road behind the hotel, and it was sort of raised up a bit, and the MPs were there, but anyway, they were missing, and we went up there, and Louis got this A40, Austin A40 going, so we put the Creme de Menthe in that, And away we went. This is getting late at night. So, yeah, we had quite a picnic with that, but we had a bit of a sore head too.
Can you remember much about the bombing of the MacDouey?
Yeah, the reconnaissance plane used to come across every day, the Japanese reconnaissance plane, and she'd tell the bombers where she was. And the bombers used to come over and bomb the MacDouey, but they weren't too accurate, and they got. And anyway, they got a couple of strikes on the MacDouey, and then she pulled away from where she was able to pull away, and we threw the race so she could get going, and she went down to the bottom of the harbour, away from the mouth of the harbour, and the bombers came over and finished her off.
Quite a number of 39th Battalion members were killed during that bombing raid.
They were, yeah, quite a few 39th killed on that. Yeah.
When you were up on the 7 Mile Drome, part of your job was to protect some of the bombers there. So there were a number of bombing raids on the 7 Mile Drome at that stage.
There's more zeros coming in and striking the drone than any. And they used to come around the point down to the end of the drome and then come along and strap the drone.
And were you on a machine gun? Were you having a sort of crack at that stage?
Yeah, but yeah, we was having a bit of a go. And then later on we were told that the Kitty Hawks were coming in.
The Australian Kitty Hawks.
Yeah. And we thought, oh, beauty. And anyway, they said, don't fire because the Kitty Hawks will be coming. Anyway, we're waiting, and they didn't. Anyway, next thing we heard the engines of the planes, and next thing we thought, oh, beauty. And the Zeros just flew up and shot her up. So anyway, the next day they said, no, they're coming in today. And we thought, oh, we're not going to get caught again. So anyway, they heard the planes coming in from the back because we couldn't see them at the hill. And around the hill they come and lined up the drone. And before we could stop firing, we realised they was the Kitty Hawk, which some of them got a few bullet holes in them. So the planes come around, and while this was on, the reconnaissance plane was flying over. The planes come around, the Kitty Hawks come around and came in. And anyway, I'm pretty sure it was Wackett now because
that Group Captain Wackett, he was an Australian aircraft designer and also a very high-ranking.
Yeah, high-ranking, yeah. And he came over and gave us a bit of a mouthful about, I don't blame him either. And he said, look how close I was. And went over there and it's full of holes through the plane. And anyway, he said, oh, you know, why don't you go up and chase the reconnaissance plane? So two of them took off and chased the reconnaissance plane. And I think they shot it down now, if I remember rightly. But anyway, that was the first action for them.
But there were a lot more bombing raids after that still.
So, yeah, there was over 30 bombing raids on Moresby. Yeah. So I think it worked up more of 100, I think, through that.
One of the more funnier stories you were telling me is you used to get a lot of parcels from home, and that was shared amongst your mates. But one of your mates didn't share any of his parcels, Ron. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, that was a bit of a, well, he made it that there was 6 of us in the tent, and at any rate, we had to get our parcels from home, and then the Red Cross used to give us parcels too. So we used to all join in and make one big feast out of it all, and we used to enjoy it that way. And anyway, this certain chap, I better not say his name, he decided he used to wait till we all went to bed, and he used to hear him rustle on his parcel under the bed and taking it out and eating it. So anyway, one of the boys come back there one evening and he said, guess what I got? And I said, yeah, what do you got? He said, I got a nice big snake here, he said. And he said, it's a tree python. It's a dead one, but the native boys give me a lend of it. So we all waited till this chap, which we used to call him Tent Pole. So he went to bed and that, so we waited, he got to bed and then we wound it around his bed. It was about a 10-footer. And anyway, through the night there was a scream. We nearly lost the tent. So that stopped that business.
Early in 1942, in January, you got dysentery and then went off to hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, we got dysentery then, and the hospital was full of people with dysentery. The toilets would be about, I'd say, 20 foot long, and all the lids were there. So there'd be about 20 chaps all sitting there with dysentery in it, and you couldn't get out of there fast enough for the stink, and you'd have to go back again. And yeah, I think it continued for about a month.
This was in the hospital in Port Moresby.
This month, yeah.
You were then transferred in early 1942. After you got out of hospital, you were transferred to the New Guinea Force. Were you a dispatch rider in the New Guinea Force?
Yeah, well, they wanted me to be dispatch rider from the Guinea Force, and I said, right, I want to be in the dispatch rider from the New Guinea Force. And that then detailed going through the different headquarters because communications weren't good. And dispatchers had to get through them.
Was it a bit, when you transferred to New Guinea Force, was it a bit sad to leave the 39th and a few mates, or?
Well, you didn't get real chummy. Those mates, you'd uphold them in anything, but you sort of didn't get real chummy, and that's why I think I don't know so many in the 39.
So in December 1942, when you're with New Guinea Force, you were a dispatch rider, and during a bombing raid, you were badly wounded in the leg. Just tell us a bit about that and your crash and what happened.
Yeah, I was running from the company headquarters through to the NGF, and the bombing raid started. And a funny thing happened too. Before it started, we'd hear the bombers coming over, and they'll tell them there was quite a few bombers coming over it. And so I left the bike and ran down into a foxhole. And while I was in there was another American soldier in there, a dark American soldier, and all I could get out of him was "Lordy, Lordy, oh Lordy, Lordy," and he was trying to dig a hole deeper with his hands. And so I jumped out of that and got on the bike again, and then the line of ambulances were coming down from the top, and I was going past one, and the next thing I knew, I was in the hospital, and my leg was in plaster. I thought, I've lost my leg, but I got wounded all up one side of the leg.
So you crashed into the side of an ambulance.
After the doctor, I suppose the only thing I could put it, I've blown over that way, and because a lot of concussions after the bombs go.
So you spent quite a bit of time on the hospital ship Duntroon with your leg in plaster.
Yep.
And then you were sent back to Townsville and back to a hospital in Queensland.
Yep.
And then you're on the first hospital train, or the Red Cross train, south through Winton and Longreach, and eventually ended up at the 102 Australian General Hospital in Tamworth. Tell us a bit about that train trip, because it was the first
Yeah, it was the first,
train with the wounded from New Guinea,
it was
wasn't
the
it?
first Red Cross train had gone through, and the people in Winton and Longreach, I think Winton was the first one. We went to Longreach, and all the women and the country people were on the platform, and they wanted to carry us all out of the train, those who couldn't walk, and take us into the hall, and they had this big banquet in the hall, and all the women in the area were there to feed us and everything, and then they had a dance for the ones that could walk. And then they took us back and put us all back on the train, and the Red Cross was with them, and they helped them too. And while we went, so we was all just getting off to sleep again, and then they said, oh, when we reach Longreach, there's another party waiting to see us all too. So anyway, we had to get off. Well, we didn't have to get off. We got off, to be polite about it, because I was up. This would be about 3 o'clock in the morning. And the same thing happened there, which was very good of them. And then from there on, we went to Red Banks in Queensland, in the hospital. And from there down to Tamworth.
Did it take a long time for your leg to heal? Because you mentioned that it was they tried something different with you to try and let it heal naturally. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, they put it in plaster and that, and then sometimes it really got on the nose. But they reckon the maggots and that, if it did get the maggots into it, it'd clean it up quicker. But they had to keep an eye on it just in case it got infected. Because it was too big a gap for them to put a graft on, a skin graft on it. And I was waiting for it to close up a bit so they could. But,
And eventually worked then, Ron?
yeah, it worked, yeah. Worked all right. The skin's still going over to this day. So, yeah, very good.
So you spent quite a deal of time in hospital, and then in March 1943, you were okay and ended up down at Caulfield in Victoria, at the holding depot at the racecourse there.
Yep. Yeah, it was there, and that's where I got leave from there, because it was a holding. And they gave me a week's leave, and I ended up getting married, going back to Tamworth and marrying the girl I met there at Tamworth. And
Was she one of the nurses?
no, she used to come and sing for the boys in the hospital and that. And if you wanted cigarettes or biscuits or something, she'd go and get them for you and that. And yeah, so I went back and got married there, and she came back to Sydney and seen me off. And went back, and they said, oh, you're acclimatised, so you're going back to New Guinea. So back I went.
So you left, so you got married, and then you joined Headquarters Force New Guinea. You were also transferred to the AAF in July 1943 too.
Yeah, well, most of 39's all joined over. And I don't know why I didn't at that time, but anyway, I did it later on, yeah.
So you went from a V number to a VX number.
VX number, yeah. Yep.
Was there any, was it just a natural thing to do, or did they ask you to join the...
No, it's just a natural thing to do. I think you get a bit tired of being called Choco and that, and just a natural thing to do.
You had the nickname Perky, obviously for Perkins. Did that stay with you all through the army?
Most of it, yeah. Used to get it, yeah, on it. I think a lot of us, got nicknames.
So, as you mentioned, you left Townsville in June 1943, on the Duntroon. So you come back to Australia on the hospital ship Duntroon, and then on the return journey back to New Guinea, back again on the Duntroon. You spent a fair bit of time there. And then you're with the 1st Australian Corps headquarters as a dispatch rider. You had a chance to go home in June 1944. You were sent back to Australia, and you had some time off for about 3 or 4 months. So was that a good break? I know you're obviously still attached to New Guinea Force headquarters, but at least you had some time with your wife back in Australia.
Yeah, I ended up on the I got down to Tamworth, and then I ended up on the Atherton Tablelands.
Ron, tell us a bit about your work up on the Atherton Tablelands.
Atherton Tablelands was after I come out of Tamworth Hospital and got married and that, and then they said, "You're going back to New Guinea," and they sent me up to the Atherton Tablelands, and I was waiting for a transport to go back to New Guinea. And at the time, they put me into a motorised unit there, and this officer came up and said, "Could you take me down to
Cairns.
Down to Cairns?" That's right. Yeah, down to Cairns, and I said, "All right." So I got a jeep. And he signed for the jeep, and away we went down to Cairns. And on the way, he was one of the best singers I've ever heard. And he was a major in the army, and he started this singing, and it was the best voice I've ever heard. And I took him down to the club at Cairns and waited for him, and then took him back home again.
So after 4 months on the Atherton Tablelands with New Guinea Force, you left Queensland on the ship Taruna for back to New Guinea, back to Lae.
Yeah, went back to Lae, and then I was back with New Guinea Force again.
You were also involved at some stage in supply drops from DC-3s over New Guinea. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Well, they wanted volunteers to help the DC-3s for supply drops over the trail and that as well, because they're still on there. The tipping, they wanted. So anyway, they're right, we'll go, and I got on the plane. They put a rope around you and tied you to the side of the plane, and then you kick the stuff out. There was no parachutes in those days on the containers. So by the time the containers hit the ground, they'd be burst open, and half the stuff would be gone anyway. But they were trying to get the stuff to them. They were the ones coming out of the trail, and yeah, that was a bit of an experience, that was.
Did you do many supply drops?
Yeah, I think was with them for about a month, I think. And you just sit and duck too. There's just an open door inside the DC-3, and you're standing there pushing stuff out, But no, we never got shot at. But we thought one day we might.
You didn't see any Japanese Zeros?
No, didn't see any Japanese Zeros, no. They weren't either.
At the same time, Ron, you were also doing a lot of general driving and dispatch riding. You were also going up as far as you could up to McDonald's Corner, which is nearly the beginning of the Kokoda Trail, and you were unfortunately bringing back a lot of men who were killed, and taking them to the Buna War Cemetery.
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, and that was a very slow job too on some of the jobs. Not taking them back, and very sad one. But then somebody had to do it.
Because the drive up to McDonald's Corner is probably some people don't realise, a very slow, a very dangerous drive with a ravine on one side and the road is very, very poor.
Yeah, it'd taken 3 or 4 hours to get up there. But as you say, it's very slow. To get up there, it was originally only a goat track.
And you're also involved in Angao, which were the natives who were working with the Australian Army. So you were involved in taking a lot of natives around also.
Yeah, taking natives around and clearing up different, taking them up and putting them to work. Well, I didn't put them to work, but all you done was pick out a boss boy out of the bunch you had and tell him what you wanted, and he used to do it. And then you let them go and then put them back in the truck and drive them back down home again.
And the Americans were finishing up in Lae at that stage.
Yeah,
And they were getting rid of a lot of their equipment. Tell us a bit about that.
yeah. Well, I want to get back to Lae, and we were just doing a bit of filling in as truck drivers and that, and cleaning up a bit there too. But the thing that astounded me was on the landing barges, I just brought them into the shore, run trucks, jeeps, anything movable. I just ran them onto them, lifted the mouth up, went out to the ocean, just put the mouths down and drove the trucks and jeeps straight into the sea. Because I reckon it wasn't worth taking them back home again. And then this went on for days. So I'd love to have taken a few of the jeeps home with me.
And while the Americans were there was some good business to be done in trading a couple of bottles of beer for a bottle of whiskey. Americans love their beer.
Yeah, they used to like the beer. And we used to get a bottle a week or something like that, I think we used to get. So we used to trade it for the whiskey sometimes.
So you scored a few bottles of whiskey out of some of these trades.
Oh, yeah.
After spending quite a bit of time in Lae, in June 1945, you flew back to Townsville in an old DC-3. And then you joined the 140th Australian General Transport Company.
Yep. Yeah, it's 140, yeah. Seymour.
Yeah, you were back down, then obviously back down to Melbourne, Seymour.
Yeah, I went down to Seymour, waiting for the to be discharged.
I think then you got transferred to the 120th Australian General Transport Company. So you spent nearly 6 months at Seymour.
Yeah, I'm there was clearing up, bringing the generators and searchlights from different areas around, bringing them back to the depots. So that sort of made it a bit longer waiting to get out.
So everything was winding down at that stage.
Yeah, it was all winding down at that stage, yeah.
And then on the 29th of November 1945, you were discharged from the Australian Army at Royal Park.
At Royal Park,
Can
yeah.
you remember much about that day?
No, I can't actually. I think I might have had a few beers that day.
Which the war had been over for quite a few months.
Yeah.
So you would have been looking forward to getting back into civilian life.
Yeah, back into it again.
Well, Ron, on behalf of the 39th Battalion Association Historical Subcommittee, we would like to thank you for your time and this very enjoyable and interesting interview. Thank you.
Thank you, Ross.